The Sharks sort of, kind of, maybe-ish have a roster. So we're going to look at where the Sharks roster stands before their 2 p.m. deadline on Monday and the moves they need to continue to make to get down to that roster size of 23 plus, where the Barracuda roster sits as of now. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at Inside the Rink. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you got to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can subscribe on YouTube, or do both. Both is great. So today we're going to be looking at where the Sharks roster currently sits and what the moves they need to do to get down to that 23-man roster before we get to before 2 p.m. on Monday, as they prepare for Thursday's opening night game against the Vegas Golden Knights. So before we dig into all that and take a look at where the Barracuda roster sits after their first 2 preseason games, do want to let you guys know about our friends over at Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Use Sleeper's terms of use for details. So Sharks currently sit at 27 players right now. If you look at Cap Friendly, it says 26. They currently sit at 27 because if you dig into Cap Friendly, Henry Thrun is still considered to be on the Barracuda. But spoiler, if you look on the Barracuda's official roster, he is not there yet. So the Sharks currently right now have 14 forwards, 11 defensemen, and 2 goalies on their roster after the weekend's moves. So this weekend, they waived Oscar Lindblom, Ryan Carpenter, and Jacob Peterson, and assigned after all those guys cleared waivers, they assigned them to the Barracuda. So we'll get, again, at the end of the show, we'll get into the Barracuda roster and where everyone kind of sits right now. But that leaves on the forwards group. So we'll start with the forwards because they're actually kind of the easiest to figure out from right now. So Sharks have 14 forwards. You have Hertl, Couture, Granlund, LeBanc, Hoffman, Duclair, Luke Cunnin, Barabanov, Nico Sturm, Fabian Zetterlund, Philip Zadina, Thomas Bordeleau, William Eklund, and Giovanni Smith. And that is in order of how much they make. So we know Logan Couture, who's been injured. He has started the season, or he's basically just started getting back on the ice. Expect him to be placed on IR before the season. So that way the Sharks can get down to that 20 as one of the moves to get down to that 23-man roster. Currently, Bordeleau looks like the guy who will, once Couture is back, Bordeleau would be most likely the guy to go back to the Barracuda, as he is waivers exempt. Him and Eklund are the only 2 forwards on the roster right now who are the only 2 players on the roster right now who are actually waivers exempt, and Henry Thrun, if you count him as well. So, but at least among the forwards, those are your only 2 forwards who are waiver exempt right now. Giovanni Smith is the guy who made it. That's the one guy I got wrong. I thought you would keep Lindblom, who would be your 13th forward, and then just because of the cap. But the Sharks decided to keep Giovanni Smith, who I think has shown some flashes this preseason, but definitely makes some plays that leave you scratching your head. The one thing with Lindblom on the roster, or in the AHL, as long as Lindblom is in the AHL, the Sharks will carry a $1.35 million buried penalty hit on their cap space right now. So nothing major. The Sharks still have plenty of room for, whatever they want to do right now. They still have about $2.6 million, and that's before you continue to kind of whittle away at this roster to get down to your 23-man cap. So plenty of that, plenty of space cap wise for the Sharks this year. No need to kind of continue to worry about that. So what do we think the lines are going to look like, at least for opening night? And going off what we saw from the last preseason game, which I think was very much a dress rehearsal, I think you're going to continue to see that first line of Zadina, Hurdle, Hoffman, which has shown some good chemistry, right? The Hoffman goal off the rush based off a hurdle shot. And Zadina, I think, has looked really good this preseason. I know he hasn't gotten the production on the scoreboard, but I think you've seen some good penalty kill moments from him. I think you've seen some good offensive opportunities. I know the Red Wing fans are like, wait until preseason's over and you got regular season Zadina, but I've liked what I've seen from him so far. So I feel pretty good about that first line. Hoffman, we'll see, but I mean, we know Hoffman can score. So I think there's an opportunity for that line to be pretty solid. Eklund, Granlund, Cunnin. So I don't know if this is going to be the second or the third line. This line and probably the next line are probably going to be pretty used interchangeably. Eklund, yeah, I mean, I think Eklund won a job at the NHL, and throughout the preseason, he got better and better and better. And we saw some sweet passes from Eklund. He played plenty of PK opportunity, was playing with Sturm, in the last preseason game when the game was, that lineup's pretty full of what you think that the team's going to look like. So I think Eklund's going to be a huge piece of the Sharks going into this season. I think this line will get better as they kind of continue to gel, right? Granlund's missed a good chunk of training camp with an injury. Cunnin's still coming back from his ACL injury. And I think as they kind of work together, gets a little bit more chemistry between them, we're going to see a little bit tighter line. I think these guys have shown some of the passes have just been like a beat off or just not where they need to be. And I think you're going to see Cunningham get a lot of opportunities to score goals because I think Eklund and Granlund are going to be able to set him up for those. If Cunningham can score goals in those opportunities, that's another story. But I think I think Eklund's in a good position to succeed on that line. In the Barabanov, Bordelot, Duclair line, again, I like putting established NHL players in Barabanov and Duclair with Bordelot to kind of, that way he doesn't have to kind of do everything on that line. Duclair, we know, can shoot, right? And Barabanov, I think, is going to have a monster season. I said it in my kind of 5 things you need to know about the Sharks. And I said he was going to be the breakout player for the Sharks. If you missed that, go check that out. That's on YouTube. I think Barabanov's going to have a monster season. And I think Bordelot can kind of hold on the line until Couture gets back. Yes, he can't do all the defensive stuff that Couture does, but I think Bordelot can kind of provide some creativity on that offense. And the final line, Sturm, LeBanc, and it's either probably going to be Smith or Zetterlund. And it's pretty tough between Smith or Zetterlund because I think Smith had a little bit more flashes than Zetterlund in the preseason. But Smith does make some bonehead plays, and I think it'll probably be more opponent-based between who plays between those two guys. And if you need someone a little bit more rough and tumble, I think that's when you'll probably see Smith in the lineup. So interesting there, but I think LeBanc had a pretty solid preseason. I know a lot of people were like, well, why didn't you waive LeBanc? He played better than all the guys who got waived, right? And I think Nico Sturm is a great 4C. He was a great 3C last year. I think he's been an excellent 4C for the Sharks. If you need to move him up or whatever you need to do, I think he has that flexibility for San Jose. Yeah, I mean, those are the 4 lines right now. Again, expect Logan Couture to go to IR, and then if you need to waive, I think Smith. If Bordelot is outstanding and you can't take him out of the lineup, I think Smith is probably the guy you're potentially looking at as a guy who gets cut to make some more room. And then you can kind of play with your lines from there. If Cunningham or Hoffman come out a little bit slow, maybe we'll move Bordelot to the wing to get Couture in there. And then you could kind of, keep tinkering with the lines. I'm sure we're going to see 1,000 different lineup changes because it's the NHL. So before we move to the back end and try to wade through the 11 defensemen and where they all sit and who goes where, do want to take a quick break here and talk to you guys about our new friends over at Sleeper. The NHL season's here. I love the NHL. I know you do. That's why you're literally listening to a podcast on the NHL. That's why I wanted to tell you guys about Sleeper. Sleeper is my go-to platform for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you have a chance to win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy. The NHL's never been more exciting now with all of its star players, right? Even just in our own backyard. You got McDavid, you got Makar, you've got a bajillion awesome players. Maybe Connor, you have Connor Bedard, Ovechkin. There's just so many good players. And if you just want to make your life simple with fantasy, that's where Sleeper comes in. You can simply select more or less based on their stats, such as goals, assists, points, saves, and more. Yes, you heard me, Sharks fans. Sleeper offers $100 times, payouts. So start paying attention, make the right picks, and you could win big. Entries can be made under 30 seconds. They have a bunch of stats available. I kind of like a Bordelot goal against Vegas, right? I know he hasn't scored an official NHL goal, but he scores big goals in big moments. And I think Bordelot finally gets his first one against Vegas. So that's mine. Just Thomas Bordelot, over under half a goal. Give me the over on Bordelot goal. So use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. All right, so we are back to look at the blue line. And the blue line this is where it gets tough. So again, the Sharks have 11. I know if you go on Cap Friendly, they say 10. If you look at the official Barracuda roster, that does not have Henry Thrun's name on it. So you have to go with Thrun is still a Shark until you see it on there. So right now, it is Vlasic, Ferraro, Ruda, Simek, Benning, Knizhov, Burrows, Okhotiuk, Emberson, McDonald, Thrun. Those are your 11 defensemen. Sharks can't carry 11 defensemen because you can only have 23, and that would put you at like 10 forwards, including your two goalies. So we know Vlasic, Ferraro, Ruda, those guys are going to be there. I think Simek is probably going to IR as one of the candidates because he's got hurt in the preseason. He's missed a lot of practice, and I assume Simek is going to be the guy that goes to IR to kind of start the season. Benning, Knizhov, Burrows, and then I think Okhotiuk is a potential IR guy because, again, you have started this, he's missed a lot of time so far this season. And then you could potentially, I know McDonald's been a little banged up as well, so maybe he starts the season, or you send Henry Thrun down to the Barracuda before your 2 p.m. deadline on Monday. So we're recording this 2 p.m. on Sunday. Go Dolphins. But that's you're going to have to make some decisions when it comes to, and I still think Thrun has been, if you look at kind of the Emberson, Knizhov, Thrun, which has been kind of the big battle, I would say, kind of a training camp battle. I think Thrun's played the best out of all three of those guys. And for me, it's hard to imagine Thrun being the guy that has to get sent down. And yes, I know he is waivers exempt, but if you preach if you're Mike Greer and you preach like competitiveness and not giving guys, making these guys earn jobs, tell me Henry Thrun hasn't earned his job the way he's played this preseason. Going back to rookie camp, going back to I think he's been one of the Sharks' best defensemen, to be honest, even with all the other guys out there. You would be doing, I think, a disservice to send Henry Thrun down. And maybe it's one of those paper transactions where you send him down for a little bit and then you bring him back up the day of game because somebody's not available or whatever, and you might have to kind of finagle some funny money or whatever cap to try to get Thrun on the roster right now. But I can't picture what world can you tell me that those guys have been better than Thrun? I'm sorry. So as for the pairings, so again, what we saw the other night was Ferraro Burrows, makes sense. Knizia, Benning, Vlasic, Emberson. So if it was me, I would probably go Ferraro, Burrows. Then I would go Thrun, Benning, Vlasic, Emberson, and because I think that gives you a little bit of everything. And then Knizia would be your 7th defenseman, and you would IR the rest of those guys or whatever you need to do to kind of, maybe you're trying to put McDonald, maybe trying to save McDonald for a little bit, and you put Thrun down, and then you waive McDonald at the beginning after kind of all that stuff is cleared and people are, more focused on their rosters right now. That could be a potential thing there, but I don't know in what world Henry Thrun isn't one of your 6 best defensemen. So that's what I would do. We'll see what Greer and Quinn do there, but I assume, though, again, I think Okhotiuk and I think Simek both start the season on IR, and then think there's going to either somebody has to be started on IR, or I think Henry Thrun is going down with the Barracuda, which would be a shame because, again, Henry Thrun has earned his roster spot, if you ask me. And I would rather have Henry Thrun play I'd rather him be the PP2 quarterback than Matt Benning. We've seen the Matt Benning for like a year now, and it's just not great. At least Henry Thrun, I think he can do it with a little bit more success than Benning. So goalies, no surprises here. Blackwood, Capo Kakinen. We'll see who gets the start on Thursday. I mean, I think Capo Kakinen's had a better preseason than Mackenzie Blackwood. Small sample sizes and such. I'm not there at practice. I don't know how they've looked at practice, but I just think Capo Kakinen's looked better. I think Capo Kakinen has a much better confidence than we've seen from him in a while. And I just think he kind of looks a little bit cooler, calmer, collected than what we've seen from Blackwood. And not to say Blackwood's been bad, but when you're comparing the two, I think Blackwood's looked a little bit more erratic, and I think he's let in a couple of soft goals that he'd probably want back, especially the beginning of that first game for him. And I think just Capo Kakinen has just been sharp since day one. And if you're trying to win games, just a reminder, David Quinn is not trying to lose games. Mike Greer is not trying to lose games night in, night out, right? They're trying to win games, but I think you have to go Capo Kakinen to start, just because I think he's had a better training camp so far. So it doesn't mean that both these guys aren't going to play a bunch of games. But I think you have to go Capo Kakinen. I think he's looked great this preseason, and I would reward him for his hard work in the preseason by giving him that opening night start against the Vegas Golden Knights. So before we switch down to the AHL, we'll look at where the Barracuda roster is, and why it looks like these young guys are about ready to take a big step for the Barracuda this year. Before we do all that, though, do need to take a quick break and talk to you guys about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. So with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, so the Barracuda roster, they made some moves. They announced their kind of newest updated roster right now as of October 8th. So when I'm recording this. So let's look at the forwards for them first. So Carpenter, Oscar Lindblom, Jacob Peterson, Tanner Kaspick, who's still on a tryout. I think he's going to get an AHL deal. Nathan Todd, Scott Saborin, Tristan Robbins, Ethan Cardwell, Adam Raska, Cole Castles, Brandon Koch, Connor McCarron, Daniel Gushin, Anthony Vincent, Ozzy Weisblatt, and then Justin Bailey. Justin Bailey also on a tryout. Again, I still think he gets an AHL deal. Bailey's been awesome, and I think he'll be a good fit for the Barracuda as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think if I had to guess right now, we're very early. I think I said it when they signed him, but I think Ryan Carpenter is going to be your captain. Just because dude's been around. He's like just what you need, what you want type of player. Good guy in the locker room, all that stuff. I think Carpenter is going to be your captain for this team. But Barracuda did have 2 preseason games. Couldn't watch them, of course, because they didn't stream them. But sounds like Robbins is already, I think these young guys between Robbins and Coe and Gushin, I think they're going to have themselves a really, really nice season. I know Ethan Cardwell scored in overtime as well. Like, you got to feel really positive about where this Barracuda roster is heading right now. I think they could be, especially all these guys kind of making that year 2 jump. And I think there's plenty of veteran guys around, like your Carpenters, right? And then if Lindblom is playing and Peterson is a tweener type of guy, I think there's a lot of excitement around this Barracuda roster. And then some, guys like Anthony Vincent, who, spoiler, have an interview with him. He is that'll be coming out later this week. So a really great guy to talk with. I think he's going to quickly become a fan favorite with the Barracuda just because of his style of play. I think he also got into a fight this weekend. So I think this is pretty much going to be it for your forward group. Maybe you have Bordalo coming back at some point, but I think there's the makings of a lot of really fun and interesting teams. So they kick off their season opener on Friday the 13th. And we'll have you covered here at Locked On Sharks as well. And going on to the blue line and the goalies for the Barracuda. So Gavanke, who cleared waivers. Gannon Larock still hanging around, which you love to see. Nick Cicek, Roman Canal, Ethan Frisch, Shakir Mukamadula, Leighton Moore, also a tryout guy, and Matt Stradell, another tryout guy as well. Both as I know Stradell played in the ECHL last year, and then Moore was an OHL guy playing with Kitchener and Oshawa last year. So both these guys are tryout guys. Moore, little guy, 5'8", so we'll see where he is. Then you have Magnus Krona, Georgi Romanov, and E2 Makanemi. I know Makanemi, I think all 3 played this weekend with Beck Warm. I know Warm got sent down to Wichita on Sunday. Magnus Krona, I just think Magnus Krona is going to make some noise for this Barracuda team. And I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year Magnus Krona is getting big starts and big must-win games for them. So not to say E2 Makanemi's been bad or anything like that, but just with his injury history, and I just think Magnus Krona, who's played a lot of big games in his college career, I just call it a gut feeling. So, but I think Shakir Mukhamadulin's he's your top guy on this, but I think there's plenty of offensive capability, especially with Gavanke on the Barracuda roster. And we'll see what happens with Gannon Larock, right? The Sharks/Barracuda can still send him down to the WHL with Victoria. I don't know. I know Victoria is kind of in a sell mode right now. They traded away some big pieces last week, and I wouldn't be surprised if Larock gets sent down if he is quickly traded because he'd be a huge asset to a team who's trying to compete in the WHL. Or they could maybe Ozzy Weisblatt him, where you kind of just, he plays a little sparingly at the beginning of the season, but then as he continues to kind of rebound and get some, kind of return from those hip injuries, where he gets more ice time at the end of the year. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Larock and kind of the decision with him. So I'm kind of in a toss because I can see both ways, right? Sending him back to the WHL where he's going to play. No matter what team he's on, he's going to play big minutes and he's going to be a huge asset and kind of play those every night moments, or letting him play, maybe being a little slow with him at the beginning of the season and then letting him get accustomed to playing professional hockey, because I mean, he's big enough to do that already, right? He's 6'2", 200 pounds, and he just turned 20 in August. Like he's a big boy who's, I think, can hold up to the rigors of it. I think if you're smart with him and maybe, like I said, a little bit slow outside the gates, and then if Shakir Mukhamadullin gets called up, or maybe get some injuries or whatever, then you can kind of let him dip his toes into it, and then you can kind of fully see his rehab because he'll be in the building. You could potentially do that as well. So plenty of intrigue with there. So, but I think the Barracuda, I think we're set for a super fun Barracuda season this year. I think Gushin's going to be an absolute monster. I think Robbins has got ready for that year 2 jump. I think Ko, who had a quiet season last year, I think he said, from the sound of it, he's had a strong training, strong off summer, strong summer, strong off season, and I think he's going to have we're going to see that Ko that we've been expecting from him. And then Ozzy continuing to grow. I think, again, same thing. Now that Ozzy is probably going to be more of an every night player, I think we're going to see more Ozzy Weisblatt being more effective, and I just think there's a good mix of skill, young guys, veterans, and if the goaltending can be what we think the goaltending can be, I think this Barracuda team is going to be really fun. I don't see why this shouldn't be a playoff team that can make some noise in the Pacific Division this year. So, all right, that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back. I think we're going to have Max Miller on from Hockey News. We're going to just chat about the Sharks. And then, like I said, I have Anthony Vincent interview with him. That was really fun. So we'll have that later this week as well. Get you guys ready for Vegas on Thursday. And yeah, so make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. And until tomorrow, bye, friends.